all this stuff about relationship and all that's going to stem back to good parenting. And when you look at parenting classes, it's going to teach the parent to become a better person. They're thinking that you're going to get these tools to teach the kid. No, it's going to be tools to teach you how to be better for the child, because they're going to learn more of what you do than what you say anyways. So how you live.
Welcome back, everybody, to Inspiring Beauty and Believers. I am Song, and today we are going to continue our conversation about parental abandonment from the voices of men. So today with me, I have my favorite co-host, my brother Jay, and we are going to talk about his viewpoint and things that he went through as a child. Even living, well, we didn't really live in the same household, but growing up as siblings, you can have a different aspect on your life with your parents. And so us having two different fathers, us having different experiences with our mom, we just have a slightly different aspect on how it affected us as children and how we have grown through it as adults and becoming parents. So Jay, I'll let you go ahead and start. Tell us a little bit about your childhood.
So my childhood, it was a good childhood. Grew up with my grandparents. You know, they was one that took us in. Adopted us without actually doing all the paperwork and stuff. My mom still kept the rights and everything and that nature. But my childhood was actually good from the standpoint of having a two-parent household. The only difference is, though, is that I didn't have my actual parents, because I would want to call granddaddy and grandmother my mom and dad, and she would correct me like, no, this is your mom. She showed me a picture of my mom. And we, of course, I don't have the father, you know what I'm saying, that wasn't in the picture. So it was just like, you know what I'm saying, you still wanted and yearned for that connection. And that's where it came in at with the disconnect. Because there was even a time where my uncle and my aunt raised me as well. And when they raised me, they gave me another great household and things of that nature, but I still was missing the mother and the father, you know. So it's like they were still, though I had two parent households, it still was my uncle, my aunt, my grandfather, and my grandmother. So it's still, I was still missing and yearning for to have a father, you know, in my life. So that's how it all began for me. And so in the earlier years, you know, when I was growing up with my grandparents, I always remember the great household. My grandma would get up, you know what I'm saying? She would go to work and she would come home every day around 4 o'clock, cook dinner for me, you know, make sure that I was done with my homework, get everything done for the day. She would help me on Sundays between her and my grandfather, making sure that my clothes was ready for the week and make sure they were ironed. So they gave me a good foundation, which was needed in foreseeing in a relationship in the future. But still, as far as being a parent, every child longs to have their mom, you know, and it was at a point where I definitely struggled with some things. And for me, we'll just explain the situation and I'll move into the next point I was going to make. But just knowing that it was at a point where it's like, yo, I wanted to yearn to be with my mom. I wanted my mom to be in my life. And at the time, my mom had me when she was 17. So she's still trying to find her way. You know, oftentimes people don't find their way when they're teenagers or adults, so they're finding their way. And so I used to remember, man, when I was young, I would cry in the mirror and be like, yo, why does she not want me? And, you know, you start thinking of something that you did as a child and why that parent doesn't want you. And then it's not until fast forwarding later and down the line when I finally talked to her and reconciled based upon, like I spoke in the other video we did about why men don't commit, but it was some books that I read that was The Empire State of Mind and Love Me, Don't Leave Me, that taught me about abandonment issues and reconciling that so that you can move forward for your future relationships. Because every person's relationship with their parent is like the one that's going to mold and shape your relationships with your significant others in the future. So I was just like, that was my first part of glimpse of not trusting women, you know what I'm saying? Because you say you're going to show up, but then you don't, you know what I'm saying? And regardless of what the points is, not to, you know, make it seem like mom was the worst mom. She was young and she just had to figure it out. but it was just something for me in my aspect. I didn't understand it as a kid. So I definitely had to reconcile that in the future, because one thing I said, no matter what, for me, I never want to play the victim. I'm always play the victor. So I'm going to change the trajectory of how my life is going to be for me and my children. So not having mom there, of course, until she was around, I just gleaned from all that wisdom and the love and the care from the women figures who played a part in my life. So I was just like, okay, this is just going to be an addition until I can't have that, from mom. But as far as for a father, I think with that, we'll speak on him now. There's definitely Russell Stewart, who I'm named after now. Rest in peace. Is no longer here. I only had one interacting with him, and it was over the phone, and it was kind of just like, "Hey, how you doing?" Whatever, small greetings, and then after that, call me when you need me. But what I recently found out as well is that my actual biological father is one I'm named after. My biological father is right now. He's still alive, but nobody really can contact or find where he is. And for me, at this point in my life, my son was asking me like, pretty much like, Dad, why don't you reconnect, with your dad and stuff like that. It's like, man, everything that I actually needed from him, I never got. So what happened was, as a child, and now went to the future, going back in reverse. Just growing up as a child, playing basketball at the park and stuff by yourself, and trying to learn these things that a dad should be showing you, what I'm saying, and just trying to figure out the things in life that I had to glean from my grandparents and my uncle and them, who didn't have to step up, very appreciative of them. It was another man's job. So if you had actually had this child, it was your responsibility to step up to the plate. And one thing that I got out of all this when I was young, I said, that anger, that hurt, that pain that it was going on inside of me internally, I just knew that I wasn't going to never do that. Once I had children, I was almost in a point of me where I was like, I'm going to never be like that to my children. I said, my children going to get the best father no matter what. I'm going to always be there for them. I'm going to do everything for them. I'm going to provide for them. I'm going to be everything that I wanted in a father that they would not be for me. So, and that's what it just happened to be, because it's these generational curses, man. If it's incarceration of black men, if it's, what I'm saying, disagreements between the parent, whatever the reason is, there's always a reason for somebody to not be there in their children's life. So we can all have reasons why we can't be there. But I was like, no matter what, hell and high water, and I've been tested as a father in being in my children's lives, and I still show up, no matter what, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm always going to fight. I'm going to stand strong for them. To so much so, to this day, I'm very grateful, because this year has been really great. I think this by far is the first year that I've actually gotten like gifts and stuff and recognition and all this love and accolades. And I'm like, man, it's been years of being a father, but it's finally getting its just due. And that's why some people got to understand is that in the midst of, when you believe in something in your life and you're standing for your children's future, even when it goes against the grain, if you believe that in your wholeheartedly, you're doing the morally right thing for your children, you got to stand. So I don't care if the baby mama taking the children and going out of state, or if they're putting you on child support, if they're sitting there using the child as a pawn, whatever the thing is, you still got to fight for what you believe in. You got to stand even when you feel that you want to give up. You just can't, because you're doing something that's going to change the trajectory of these kids' lives. And so, being late, so talking about the aspect of a man, that's just pretty much for me why I have made the decisions I have for my children, to stand strong in their future, and making sure that they're set up in with their legacy, that they're self-sufficient, that they don't rely on anybody else, and that, but they're still loving and great individuals to this world, because I feel it's needed. And that's why for me, I'm going to forever be mentor and a guiding and coach for my son, to make sure that I teach him to be the type of man that nobody else's daughter has to heal from. And so, and as far as from my daughters, I just pretty much raise them to be respectable and understand the difference of understanding how a man operates and what an example of a man should be. And it's just not also providing, but speaking life into them. I tell all my daughters they're princesses. You know what I'm saying? Speaking to them so that they can know the royalty was inside of them, so that way that this being valued. And I take them on trips and do things for them, so that way that when it's already done in their life, they're not impressed by those things, but they're impressed by a person's true character and value of who he is for his family. And that's what I've done for them.
Yes, I can attest to seeing the transformation in who you were growing up and then who you've become as a man and as a father. And I think it's amazing. I love watching especially my nephew. Like, I think the last time I was like, man, so he's not a baby anymore. He's so mature. You need to teach his cousins some stuff. But I think that's it's a testament to what you have instilled in him, and even throughout the years when it didn't look like the words you were saying were impacting him, it has. And so that was one of the things that I had to think about when Stefan made the decision that he wanted to go live with his dad once he was starting high school. As a mother, there's some things, even though we're divorced and we're living in two different states, there are some things that I knew I was not going to be able to instill in him, and he on the inside of himself knew that he was missing some things that he needed his father for. And so I'm thankful that he was able to see that even as a young man and take that step to leave mom to go be with his dad. And I'm thankful that he had a dad that was willing to really take that part in his life and to teach him and to raise him up when, I don't want to say that my part is done, but, now he's in a new transition in life. It was hard, being a mom. It's so hard for my baby to say he want to go live somewhere else. But I'm grateful that we have that communication, that we're able to do that. And it took a while for us to get there too, but it happened. I think that if I would not have dealt with the things from my childhood, feeling like I wasn't like emotionally connected to my mom or emotionally connected to my dad, and then my dad not being there and stuff, if I wouldn't have dealt with those things, I wouldn't have been able to pour that into my children. And so I know that you talked about the books that you read to really help you to deal with those issues of that abandonment from both of your parents. Can you talk a little bit about some of the triggers that you had prior to you really dealing with those things?
So things that would be for me that people's inconsistency was always a trigger. So if you promise me something, if somebody says they're going to take you to Disneyland and they don't take you, you know what I'm saying? There's a sense of hurt that comes and disappointment. Then you kind of go through the different emotions, went through different emotions within inside of myself. And then it ended up turning into anger because you don't know how to express yourself. Because oftentimes, we're taught as men not to cry, not to do that, or even as little boys and stuff. And I feel sharing your emotions is healthy if you know how to express yourself healthy. You know what I'm saying? That's why thank God for sports and stuff like that. And sports has always been an avenue for a lot of boys, especially growing up in California. It's like sports is the main thing, out there. So that gave me an avenue between basketball. But then when I wasn't doing good in grades, and that's why I wasn't able to participate. So then that had to find a way to express that energy as well. So that was definitely a trigger. But let's kind of play it like this though. Let's talk about the trigger of abandonment and also inconsistency. And so for me, I feel like my first example of a man is going to be the male figure that's in my life. But my first example of my relationship with a woman as being a heterosexual man is my interaction with my mother, a woman figure in my life. So having that inconsistency at a young age as a boy started having me not trust women. And I didn't know that. It's like, so it started building, and that became a trigger of not trusting women because of the first woman figure that I had, that was supposed to be my mom. Didn't, even though I had my grandmother that was a great example, my actual mother, the one that, birthed me, couldn't trust her, to come through in the ways that I felt needed in my life. And so when you start thinking about that, and this is where these books came in, and I had to reflect and bring the mirror in front of myself and really check myself and be like, there's something going on in your subconscious that you're suppressing that you really need to expose. And most people don't want to do that because it's going to put you out there in a point of, okay, something wrong about you. Most people want to blame everybody else, but when can you look inside of yourself and say, something's wrong with me that I need to fix? And if I don't fix it, I can't even attract the right person or have a healthy relationship. But back to my point that I was trying to make was that that was my first encounter of that. Next one of my next encounter would be a first love. So with the first love, oftentimes you think that, what I'm saying, this is a great thing, it's gonna last forever and all that, and you find out that they don't and they really ain't been faithful to you, and you start looking at that, you're like, dang, that's another ex. So boom, you got your mother. So you stack that on there, and then you got the first love. That don't go right. Then you start dating. You just keep stacking up and you're building this whole house upon a bad foundation that was built from the beginning. And then you become this broken person. So you don't treat other people. And it's like hurt people. You know what I'm saying? So because they don't know how to operate in the right avenue of things. And so these abandonment issues is something that's really causing issues within people's relationships right now because the households are so broken down. Divorce rates are so high now, but I don't believe that it's just not also, even if the divorce rates were at a 90% and people were staying in marriages 90% of the time, it still has to come down to people, the parents improving themselves and teaching it to the children. They have to be taught and coached and mentored and how life is supposed to be, based upon that child's life. So even right down, but getting back to relationships, that all the way down to the point where I got married. Was married for 12 years, all together 14 years, and then ended up getting divorced. That's a big brick on top of everything. Like, oh, something that was supposed to be for life. I honored these vows and this and that, and it just didn't work out. So you got to get past the failure. So at that point, and this all stems from the first interaction with the mother figure in my life. And so at that point, I'm looking like, dang, I can't get nothing right. And so when I first came out of it, it's like, man, I just didn't even feel like myself anymore. And it's like, and it's like, my decision making. That's why I see a lot of people who first come out of divorces, there's rebound people because they're really not ready. So I got some advice from my grandmother going back to the other female figure in my life. And she told me, she said, grandson, you got to give yourself 2 years, and you got to get 2 years. But in that time frame, in that 2 years I was taking, I ended up connecting with the company Herbalife, and thanks to one of my best friends from he's over like 19 years now. His name is Marcus. Man, it was pretty much props to him that he introduced me to a business model, and with that business model taught me a discipline and being self-sufficient, which helped me to this day. But then also the key component was the self-development. And the self-development is what really exposed me to the books. Before this, I was never exposed to books as a child. Nobody told me to read books, get information. They probably say read books, but not books to improve yourself. So I started working on myself. And so that was in 2014. So we're in 2020 now. So 2014, I started working on those books and tried some things and relationships and still didn't work, what I'm saying? Even within that time, it just still wasn't my time yet, what I'm saying? So then at that point, I had to just keep working on myself and keep reading books. But on top of reading books of understanding myself, I had to start understanding women. So I had to start reading books about how women operate and how they think, because they don't translate the same thing the way that men do. You know what I'm saying? So like when men, they oftentimes ready to go, and they attracted to a woman just on the outer appearance, views and all that. And it's kind of crazy because oftentimes you'll see men saying, what I'm saying, I want to keep it PC or PG, but they sending pics to women of parts, what I'm saying, of their body parts and stuff, and women like, I'm really not feeling that because it's not translated the same way. Though men want that, that's not what a woman wants. So you got to translate it. A lot of times with women, they at the end of the day gonna want security. They're gonna want to make sure that what I'm saying, you really can hold a conversation, that you got their best interest, that what I'm saying, are you even a candidate to be a future husband, in their lives and things of that nature. And it kind of puts you into certain categories in that aspect. But not to go not too far into that. But yeah, it just goes back to, for me, was just thinking about all those times with my mom, what I'm saying, what it did to me later on down the line, where I had to reprogram that and recreate the future of my children. If I didn't change that outside of myself, I would not be good for my children. So even though I kind of dibbled and dabbled and stuff like that and dated in my early years after being divorced, I took some time because what really got me was I tried to date this one lady. She like super fine. I'm like, she fine, she gonna be great, and this and that. And she was exactly like my ex-wife. And I was like, yo, she just looked way different. You know what I'm saying? But she was exactly the same. And at that point I said, and it came to me with inside of myself, and I heard, you have to change who you are in order to attract different. And that's when I started really, really start working on myself. Is people get out of relationships like, oh no, it's just that person. No, it's you. Like at the end of the day, it's you. Even if, and that's why when I date people, I typically don't like to tell them what I like, because at the end of the day, you want a person to be themselves, and you really don't know till you experience what a person is. So maybe experience could be good, but it just comes down to a point that people have to understand to work on themselves. Like this, it's a tough thing that nobody want to do. Everybody want to blame somebody else, but some people got to stop. They got to stop running from it. They got to stop running from it and address it head on. That the problem is you. At some point or some form or fashion, even if it's not you personally as a person, it's your people you're picking to be a mate with you. So at some point, there's something you have to change and you have to value. And I understand it's hard, what I'm saying, in life to sit here and have to wait for the right person to come. But I promise you, it's better for you to be 70 years old and live the best 20 to 30, 40 years of your life than to keep creating another blemish in your subconscious, another hurt, another pain, another wasting your time with somebody that's not the right candidate, for you. And the crazy part about it is that women could probably, and this is the way that I feel, and it's always gonna be my perspective, but I feel women could choose any man they want to sleep with, but at the end of the day, they can't choose the man they want to marry. It's up to the man to choose who he's gonna marry. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times these women are like, where these men at? Where these men at? It's just, you gotta understand you're not the right one at that time. And that, and even if you're not the one at that time, you may be the right one later. And a lot of times for men, and I've been talking with this, that men is not even really ready on the average till after 35. I'm realizing even within my life, who I am now, I became even more of who I am on the levels that I am in the last 2 years. And I just turned 40 in last week or a week and a half. So it's like, and to be where I'm at right now in life is an amazing thing. So sometimes men, we already know that men or boys in general develop later than women, or young girls. So it just comes to that time. But all this stuff about relationship and all that's going to stem back to good parenting. And when you look at parenting classes, it's going to teach the parent to become a better person. They're thinking that you're going to get these tools to teach the kid. No, it's going to be tools to teach you how to be better for the child, because they're going to learn more of what you do than what you say anyways. So how you live your life, you can't tell your child not to be a thief, but you stealing. They watch it like, or tell your child to tell the truth, but you've been lying the whole time to them. You know what I'm saying? You can't do that. And it all comes down to parenting skills at the end of the day. So parents have to become better parents, because if we really want world peace and if we really want change in this world, it all starts in your home. You know what I'm saying? First ministry is going to always be in your home. The first movement you want to do is going to be in your home, is what you're going to teach to your children. The love that they're going to give out to the world is going to be taught in the house. And if there's hate out in the world, is what was taught in the house. You know what I'm saying? In some fashion. So all these things with the abandonment issues, people just have to become better people for the next generation so we can change the world.
I was having a conversation with my dad earlier, like always, and he had mentioned, in this time with everything that's going on in the world, we're trying to teach our children about what racism is. But in teaching them racism, sometimes we can make them racist because of how we're teaching it. So I like that you pointed that out. It's going to start in your home, what you're putting in them. If you're teaching them to love people and not base things based on the color of their skin, but the content of their character. And I try really hard to develop that in my kids. And then I try to reflect what is in me that I may be putting in them that I'm unintentionally doing. So I go back and replay conversations that I have with them. Like I had a conversation with them yesterday. I won't go into all the stuff that happened, but I had to go back and replay, like, okay, was I too hard on it because I was frustrated when I was saying this stuff? So maybe I was too upset when I had this conversation. Like the stuff that I was saying was correct, but maybe my execution of it was not right. And then how is that going to affect their ego or their self-esteem? Because I heard this comedian say years ago, he said, self-esteem is your esteem of yourself. And but it starts somewhere. I read this quote. It said that the voice of a parent becomes the inner voice of a child when they grow up. So what they hear about themselves, how they feel about themselves as they grow into that adulthood, comes from what they heard their parents say about them when they were a child. And I think that is a big thing. Mom and I had a conversation about this, because when I was younger, she would say different things to me, and now, you know, she's apologized for it, because she said she never knew that became triggers to her children, because she wasn't saying it intentionally to hurt us. She just said whatever, because that's how she grew up. Because, you know, grandpa just said whatever, grandma still say whatever, and it just trickles down. And so I'm consciously always thinking about, what am I saying to them? How are they perceiving this? And how are they internalizing this? Because I want to make sure that I'm doing as much damage control as possible, so that when they grow up, they're not thinking, well, I can't do this, I'm a failure in this way, because when I was 5, my mama said this to me. And, you know, sometimes we get confused at the fact that, abandonment is my parent was not there at all. But sometimes your parent can be there, but they're not there emotionally connecting with you in the way that you need. So then that affects you too.
I got you. Yeah. And you'll hear it all the time. Some of the things that I hear, and it's not my place to correct a parent in front of their children stuff, but I really dislike when people call their children clumsy, stupid, skinny, fat. All these different things are things that you're building up in this child, and this child gonna remember it. So when they gain weight, they're gonna hear their parents say you fat. Or if they're too skinny, they're gonna try to sit here and overeat, or maybe become bulimic or anorexic, you know what I'm saying? Because they'll overeat and then try to throw up. Or a child, when they don't do good in school, they're like, well, really, I am stupid, you know what I'm saying? Or clumsy every time they trip. See, my mom said I was clumsy, and I see it all the time. And it's like, yo, at some point, people got to learn how to guard their tongue. And that's why parents have to be cautious of that. And also what you got to be cautious of, as well, as in this time of when we're sitting here, and most of us have lived through the racism, though I've never lived through it the way that my ancestors did. I went through enough police, you know, brutality and verbal and physical abuse and stuff like that. It just become a way of life. But in this process of people showing their children, they gotta make sure, like you were saying, like for me, what I like to do, and this is my perspective, and hopefully somebody can take it, I show my children what they see. They let me know what they feel about it, because I want them to express themselves and not just do that. And most likely it does create a form of racism. And then you have to learn how to turn this, because for me, what I've turned it to is like telling my children, though you see all this that we went through, we're promised great things, and we're still royal people. But what you have to understand is that look how much we've came as a people. And with this information that you've seen, what are you going to do to change the future? You know what I'm saying? And you can protest whatever it is that it's going to take to make the movement stronger, whatever it is to make life better. But you got to understand, somebody carried the water and the torch for you and went through way more than you had to go through. You wasn't in no slave fields. You ain't have dogs and water holes being scraped at you, and you're not being hung in fields. So at this point, what it is you need to take this energy that you have and don't let it be hate, but take this energy and go change the world, go become something great that you can change the movement, even if it's in your house. Because for me right now, I've been focused on in my house and building a network. If it's you, the boys, everybody in my near vicinities who I've been working on, I haven't even went all the way out into the world yet, because if you could start with the ones that you're working with in your economical system right close to you, they will branch out into things of great things. You just got to find where their niche is going to be and where, you know, they're going to be great at. Because, I mean, once you got access, once you have money, once you're being placed in positions of office and Senate and stuff like that, you get to really start making those changes. But you got to know what you're fighting for. You got to know, and you got to be aware that it's happening. So even though we're exposing it to it, people got to understand that it is happening. And that's the thing. But it's been happening for a while. It's just now it's really getting to a point where people is really just done with it. And so yeah, once again, I try to teach my children from an aspect of positivity and optimism, but more or less improve yourself so you can go change the world.
Amen. So I didn't even know what else to say out. That's all I could get out. But I remember you telling me about I don't even know how we got on this conversation, but you were telling me one time about how you didn't like ramen noodles, but you would eat them because it reminded you of a memory or time that you spent with mom when you were younger. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So we got certain things, man. If it's like you smell barbecue and it reminds you of the barbecue out at the house, if it's it was because mom used to give the cup of noodles and stuff like that. And sometimes as a kid, you want to find connected to your past and stuff. And I remember when my mom used to live around the corner from my uncle when I was staying with them when we was in Rialto, and I was going to school. So I had my uncle's house on this side, my elementary school's here, and then my mom lived over here. So instead of coming this way to go home, I go backtrack and go see mom. And that's when Bird and Kiki and them, that's when she was with Ricky at the time. And I would go over there and eat, and she'd give me a little lunch and stuff like that. And yeah, I've just never been one for ramen noodles, but sometimes you got to go back to something that brings you joy and brings you that connection. Like for me, no matter no matter what time of the year, if you eat macaroni and cheese, greens and cornbread, and some ribs or something like that, is or turkey is going to always take you to Thanksgiving or a family dinner or Christmas dinner, whatever your traditional things is. It takes you to the point of joy. And sometimes you got to relive, even if it's something you don't like, to get to the point where you find a fond memory. Because some people go back to grave sites when somebody passed away. I don't. I have a son that passed away. I don't even think I've been to his grave site except for when his mother passed away. It's the only time I went back and went there. I've never went back to his grave site then because I don't want the last vision I seen of somebody in the ground. I want to remember the times that I see the pictures. So I refer to pictures and stuff from the time that share the true essence of their spirit. I go back to when they're alive. That's why it's big shout outs to all the things that's happening with media and videos. You can always go back and relive when a person had life within inside of themselves. So whatever it takes. So that's what I really pretty much did with the ramen noodles. I don't eat them no more though. But yeah, it was times in childhood that I would always want to go back to, and kind of like for me, getting some eggs and bacon in the morning and smelling that kind of reminds me of a time that I spent with my granddaddy, my grandmother sitting at the table and drinking Kool-Aid and all those good things and eating dessert. It just takes you back to a time when it was good and it was safe and it was fun, and you just remember those things. And at times, whatever it is that you do can remind you of that. Still like to play basketball because that was a time that's always a time I feel free, though it's a love-hate relationship with it because of the work that goes in behind it, the losses you take. It's something you become infatuated with certain things in your life that brings joy to you, so you're willing to go through it. And that's just what it is. Like same thing with the ramen noodles, the same way I see it in life. If it's with your children are not going to always be those little angels you want them to be. So you're going to go through some hell and high water at times with them. But the hard times makes the joy so worth it. And that's why I've really, really came to the point that I find things that bring me enjoyment. Like some people say, would they choose between TV and music? If I really had to choose, I would choose music because that's what touches the soul more than TV does for me. So I would never give music up over TV. I would always want to do that because you can listen to a song and I think it's called Love Ballad. I want to say it's Love Ballad is the name of the song. And whenever I hear this song, it always takes me to a point when after the barbecue's over, the night's winding down, grandma's drinking her wine, mom and that's sitting at the table, and it's usually about to be all the cousins about to disperse and go home. And that song usually comes around every time. So every time it plays, it reminds me of a good time, but it also reminds me the ending of the night. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I don't know if it was something they did on purpose. DJs do, they play that last call song or whatever it is. It's about to wind down, the slow dance song, whatever it is they play to end the night. But that's usually what it was. And I know it's Love Ballad, I want to say the song is. And
I think I
so
have it on my old school playlist.
it is Love Ballad, right?
Yeah.
It's yeah, so it's Love Valley. So you remember, and every time you hear it, you probably see at 1790, everybody starting
Yes.
this, the house being cleaned up, and grandma and them sipping some wine now, and everybody starting to pack up and leave home. So it was a great time, but then it also was the ending of that moment. So you know what I'm saying? It's just certain things that trigger beautiful moments in there in your life. So and but I'll speak about one more thing about abandonment for me is that at some point you got to understand that people gonna leave this earth, and that's another form of abandonment that you feel too. It's like you want nobody. Everybody's talking about want to go to heaven, but nobody want to die, right? So
Right.
somebody's has to leave at some point, and I think one of the best things that happened to me in the most recent time was granddaddy passing away. So when granddaddy passed away, people were like, wow, like your grandfather passing was the best thing. Yeah, it motivated me to another level. It motivated me to a level to become a forefront of my family, to start learning about entrepreneurship, learning about being self-sufficient, retiring my grandmother, and it made things real for me that just pushed me into my future on a whole nother level. So sometimes people have to understand that the abandonment can be good because it's really just setting you up for your future, because there's some guy or woman you want to be with, but for some reason that they just gotta go, you know what I'm saying? Because they're not meant for your future. And some people want to, but I don't want to let go. I don't want to let go. But you gotta let go of the things that's going to hinder you from your future, because you don't know where you're going to be in the future. And so oftentimes I just look at that and I just reflect on the abandonments and things of my nature. And now I embrace abandonment, because it's every so often, probably quarterly, I just pray and I'd be like, reveal, remove, and expose anything that's hindering me to reach my future. And it has happened over the years, and a lot of times you don't even know who it's going to be. Like you gonna think it's somebody else, and it don't even be that person. It be somebody way off on the other side, or somebody that was right there next to you. And when it happens, it hurts. But even when a tree or a branch is growing, if there's any dead areas connected to it, if it's weeds in the garden, you got to remove that in order for you to continue to grow. And that's what people have to realize. So abandonment is also a good thing. It's not always a bad thing,
Mhm.
because you hold on to things that ain't really beneficial in your life. And sometimes you're just reconciling and getting you back to the square one you were supposed to be at before you made the decision to bring in that weed or that dead branch into your life that connected and started being a leech and sucking the life out of you. So people have to start abandoning some unfruitful areas in their lives too. So you just got to be able to just walk away free and clear.
I like that. Because yeah, I think that sometimes we don't look at it as it could possibly be a good thing. Sometimes we hold on to some stuff for too long, or the season has ended, but we are not ready to let go of this person. And sometimes it's because of other stuff we haven't dealt with in our lives. So that fear of being left alone, but you can't go to that next level until you release some things. You can't carry all that baggage around with you. So um, I agree. I think when you're talking about grandpa, I have this image that replays in my mind like constantly at the funeral, and Stefan was sitting on a rock. It was at the graveyard, and he was tying his shoe, and he was like, "Mommy, I never got to show him I learned to tie my shoe," because that was one of the things the grandpa had worked with him on. And that for me, it broke my heart, because I was like, for him, he wanted to show him that he accomplished his goal. And so it took a long time for me to really deal with him being gone, but it did bring out another purpose and a drive in me to say all those things that he instilled in us. I want I wanted to not be in vain, because he taught us to be successful, to push hard, to, not give up on our dreams. I promise every time I talk to him, he was like, when you going to do this? Or when you going to do that? Or, and then he was always telling me I should go on court shows and sue people too. But that
That
was
was it. You will always see somebody.
but it's always about, taking care of your family and making sure that everybody was taken care of and good. And I think that, for me, I think the bigger part was not just in losing him, but then the after effect of when grandma lost the house and stuff. And I was like, if we were in a different position, then that would not have happened. And so, though it hurt to lose that, it gave me a drive that this will never happen again. We're going to make sure that our family is taken care of, that we're all building this legacy so that the next generations don't have to go through this stuff again, so that we have our own and our family is taken care of.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And that was with you just touching on everything in that aspect. That's what really drove me when to know that he was a veteran of the United States and he had Social Security, that he worked his whole life for, blood, sweat, all the cancer and all the different health issues he went through and stuff. He always showed up for the family. He always put the family first, and I embraced that. And even to know that grandma gave me his chain, most people be like, "Oh man, he's Christian and this and that," but really, this was granddaddy's medallion that grandma gave to me, and I hold it and I embrace it, and I've even been told like I'm one of the forefronts of the family now, and I embrace it, like to know that I made a promise to him when after he passed to take care of his wife, that the rest of her years would be good. And now there is, you do change around, and some of the worst things in your life be the best things in your life. So sometimes those things that you want in your life, when it abandons or it leaves your life, the true essence of what you need and the spirit of it will always live on. Like his spirit of, like I said, of always being consistent made me to be consistent in my children's life. So sometimes when we're abandoned from another father, we'll get another father that comes in, though it's not your actual father, will be the best example for you. And that was one of the things I didn't make a point, and I'll make it now. After speaking with my mom, she said the example of me and she had in her life wasn't going to lead me down the right road, and she put me in position to be with good father figures like my grandfather and like my uncle Michael. Two great, awesome men I'm forever grateful and indebted to, and very thankful. And I could do nothing less but be successful off the sweat and hard work that they did on their back. So I couldn't do nothing less but take the baton on and take it to the next level. And that's what we all have to do, as not only just in families but as a culture, is push this marker a little bit further for the next generation, so they don't have to run as hard. Start catching up on, getting the assets of the 40 acres and mule we never received. So we had to start from the gutter and out of the mud and come up to where we at now. And where people's making a lot of moves and starting to have a lot of better positions, and their voices are being heard, and things are getting changed. So out of being abandoned in that aspect, we was abandoned. We just dropped off and like, yeah, you're free, but abandoned us on not giving us what was rightfully ours. So to come back and get it is very important for us as a culture. But once again, man, it always hits me, man, to be in this house. Matter of fact, people can't see it, but this is the house that, me and my sister purchased on August the 2nd, 2019. August the 2nd is my grandparents' anniversary. So to purchase that, and then by a week later, my grandmother moved into a house and be in a house again, is just a beautiful feeling. And all I did was just start crying, because I was very grateful to know that something that happened in your life, and for somebody else who can lay up their lives for you, I don't know how you cannot come back and give back to them. You know what I'm saying? So I'm truly, truly grateful for the ones who didn't abandon me and the man figures that was in my life. And for those young men and young women who don't have that, there are some good men out there. And I try, though. I'm only one man. I try to give to my nephews, to anybody who comes in my life. I just give of myself, because I knew somebody did it for me. So I'm just trying to raise up enough men to be great, that's in my near vicinity, so that way that they can change the life of others too. So abandonment, once again, this has been a great topic for me to speak on because it's been good and bad for me. So but even in the bad times, it reverted back to good for me. So it still worked out in a good favor, no matter how you look at it. So let's continue to keep growing as people, man, and let's keep changing the world and keep impacting lives in a good way, in a good way. And the best way we can do it to not affect anybody else and not to hurt anybody else is just grow individually. Just keep growing individually and keep becoming the best versions of ourselves. Yeah.
Yes. All right. I hope all of you guys received all of that. Like, comment, share, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, I don't even know what you're doing with your life right now. Like, you should have subscribed like 4 seasons ago. We're not even all in the 4 seasons, but you should have subscribed a long time ago. But keep coming with us on this journey as we help people to heal from this abandonment and really become the best version of yourself. So, love you. Thank you for